Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.
Welcome to the Smart City podcast. I'm thrilled today to have our guest, Adne Baer-Olsen of Gassecure, a Draeger company. He's visiting us all the way from Norway today, and he specializes in wireless fire and gas detection systems. Adne, it's great to have you here. How are you?
Thank you very much. No, it's great to be here. I always enjoy coming here for the ARC conference. Get to meet a lot of interesting people, and the topics are also good.
That's great. Let's just start with a foundational question. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to the world of wireless fire and gas detection?
Yeah, so for me it's been quite a journey. I started out as a tradesman, electrician, and fortunately my company, we did, back 20 years ago, we were doing smart buildings. So in Norway, the public buildings are charged on the maximum power they use at one point, and then they get massive power bills based on that. So they developed a PLC system that had control over all the heating sources in the building, and if they started making a peak, it started turning off the cooler heatings and the boilers and everything, so we could save the companies a lot of money. But then just being a tradesman, I was able to put in sensors, make networks, so that was the start of my journey. And after 10 years, I took my bachelor degree in business development, worked with some heating systems, and then I moved into oil and gas as a sales manager for fire and gas detection, which was a very old technology because oil and gas is very conservative. But during my tenure there, I became the sales and marketing director of one of the larger companies doing that in Norway. And we were the first distributor for a new technology made in Norway, wireless gas detection. So actually the first wireless gas detection project in the world for fixed detection was done in Norway. It was my project. And I'm not an engineer like most of the customers I have, but I'm very curious about finding out about stuff, and that's led me. I lived in Dubai. I'm now globally responsible for this. I get to talk to policymakers. I'm on committees to try to introduce wireless into a world that's made for wired guidelines. So I get to do all this stuff and first projects all over the world.
That's fascinating. Before we get into the obstacles of the market, for our listeners, can you describe the landscape of what is fire and gas detection and what's special about wireless fire and gas detection?
So basically, anytime we want to recover energy, there's always risk associated with it, and you design your plant to avoid having explosive buildups. You don't want to get hazardous gases into the safe areas. You employ safety systems to shut down the plant safely and avoid ignition of potential hazards. And then the eyes and ears of the safety system is the fire and gas detectors that pick up the hazards, tell the people where to go. And basically when you design systems for a refinery or a tank farm, they do it in that time. So of course acceptance of risk changes over time, governance from the companies, for the countries, is always changing, and there's this limitation on the spares they put in, so there's never enough IOs on the PLCs, there's not enough cables in the ground to fill in safety gaps. And if you're digging in a refinery, at least in Norway and many places, even the dirt is considered to be hazardous waste. So you need to put a lot of people in the field to do the work. But with wireless gas detection, you can put in, for example, an ISO 100 network and get hundreds of communication points and just place them in. There's no hot work permits, there's no people going to site, there's less maintenance. So it really saves a lot of money for the customers. They want the technology, but we need the guidelines to catch up.
So What application? I mean, I could guess oil and gas refineries are a large market for you. But what other applications are there out there?
So we're seeing, like in Italy now, we're doing clean rooms because they don't want to puncture the walls with cables. Mm-hmm. So if we can go in and monitor these safe rooms with wireless gas detection, it gives them full flexibility of changing where they need to have the gas, but also to keep the clean rooms sealed still, because the wireless signals goes in and out without a problem. We've also seen it in there's also a lot of chemical plants, so both inside but also fence monitoring, like in Israel. They impose that everyone who has potential of some hazardous gases going from their area into other building areas, they will need to have the stringent quality of gas detection on the fences to be able to alert neighboring sites.
That's so fascinating.
And also wastewater treatment. We can do very fine measurements on if they're letting any of the gases going out.
You had mentioned and referred to an ISO standard. How does that relate to?
So basically, what we're seeing is we are using ISO 100, which is an IEC standard for the communication. But what we're seeing is most of my work was to explain how we communicate and how robust the communication is. But now we're seeing these cybersecurity questions coming up because people are getting hacked. Mm-hmm. So basically, our communication is secure because it's designed by ISA very stringently. So we can handle cyber attacks and stuff, but you still need to make a value chain. So normally when I talk to the customers, it's all about certification on the safety level for the device and the communication and the final elements, and everything needs to be certified by IEC 61508. So if one single part is not certified, the entire loop is worthless because you can't document the risk reduction you're doing. And I'm expecting we will need to do cybersecurity loop calculations, and you need to put certified equipment in at every single point from the start of the system to the final sensors. And if there's any weak points in there, that will also won't be approved for cybersecurity, because you only need one part to lose the entire value chain for safety.
Sure. What obstacles do you see in this market, both wired and unwired?
So for the market now, it's we see a lot of these FMs, Exceedas, and the people that are doing the third-party approval stuff. I sometimes get annoyed that they test on several similar things, but you need to have approvals from everyone. They're not recognizing each other, so they're driving a lot of costs.
Sure.
And that's also spilling over on the end users, because I do IEC approval in Europe, and most of the world is okay, but then you come to America, and then FM, you need some FM approval, you need some UL approvals, but the equipment is of the highest quality, but every time you go to this, you don't really add any value to your customer, because it's already
right.
So I would love to see a way of getting more performance approvals, both for the safety level and also for the cybersecurity, that we don't end up having so many different approval agencies making us do several testings with several vendors just to be available around the world. There needs to be a more efficient way.
So you'd like to see either one universal testing standard or harmonization across that? Yeah, I can see how that increases cost and adoption challenges. What do you see for the future?
So for the future, I see less people going into the field, smarter sensors, that we're using more of the technology we have. We're also considering going into safety as a service. So especially now with the new hydrogen value chain, there's going to be a lot of non-expert players coming in, needing to have electrolyzers, filling stations, local distribution for the hydrogen. And these, we can't really expect them to man up with people that have the same level as the chemical industry and the oil and gas for every site. So I'm seeing that the vendors need to take more responsibility. We need to be connected to all our sites. We need to do all the trending of the performance of every single device, and then we supply the customer with compliance to their guidelines as a service. So we give them uptime documentation on everything is working as it should be according to their guidelines, and they are only basically paying an operational cost, not buying the equipment and concerned about obsolescence or stuff breaking. That should be our responsibility.
Well, Adne, we're nearing the end of our time together. Are there any last-minute comments you have for our audience?
So, after working with wireless gas detection for 10 years, we're seeing it starting to move fast now than before, but giving new technology a chance is still a struggle in our business. But if we're going to achieve profitable production in the future, we need to adopt new technologies and be open.
Well, thank you again. Lastly, for any of our audience members that might want to reach out to you, can you share your contact information?
Yeah, so it's adne.baer-olsen@draeger.com, and if you go on like LinkedIn and search for Gassecure, so that's Gassecure in one word, it should be easy enough to find.
So again, I want to thank Adne Baer-Olsen of Gassecure, a Draeger company, for being our guest today. And we hope to see all of you again on the next edition of the Smart City Podcast.
Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities Podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.